I'm Allison Langer.
I'm Xaire.
I'm Andrea Askowitz, and this is Writing Class Radio. You'll hear true personal stories and learn about how to write your own stories. Together, we produce this podcast, which is equal parts heart and art. By heart, we mean the truth in a story. By art, we mean the craft of writing. No matter what's going on in our lives, Writing Class is where we tell the truth. It's where we work out our shit.
Yeah.
Never gets old.
I know.
Yeah.
There's no place in the world like Writing Class, and we want to bring you in.
This is our final episode.
Not ever.
No, not ever. But in this 10-part series, I mean, I just have really enjoyed sharing the stories and talking about them with you guys. So it's kind of bittersweet, but I'm so glad that we got 10 episodes out into the world of these guys writing and sharing and stuff like that who are, want to be heard. As you guys know, this whole series was inspired by the men I taught memoir writing in a men's prison. And, we just really wanted their voices to get out into the world. They don't usually get heard. So thank you for listening to them. Xaire has been here co-hosting with us and contributing his feedback and commentary throughout the series, which has been invaluable. Xaire's a poet, musician, and teaching artist who teaches writing and poetry in school and juvenile detention facilities. He has also lent us his music for the series. So thank you, Xaire, for taking this journey with us.
Thank you for allowing me to take it with you.
Also, I just have really come to like this guy, Xaire.
It didn't take much. We came to like him like the first time he popped onto the screen.
I was like, oh, hi. I love having this poet's point of view. It's just been amazing. I want to say something before we continue, and I've said this on every episode, but what's interesting, I think, about podcasts is this might be the first time someone's listened. So I want to say it again. We don't want to sensationalize crime or sensationalize violence. And we want to be respectful of anyone who's been affected by violence. The whole purpose of this 10-part series is to share stories because we believe that sharing stories leads to understanding.
Yeah, and if it's something we need more of these days, it's understanding. On the very first episode in this series, which was episode 115, I went into detail about our motivation and hope for airing these stories. And I kind of briefly just touched on that again, but I told my whole story of meeting Too Tall and some of the other men that you heard from in this series. So if you want to start from the beginning, just go back to episode 115 and start there.
Today on our show, Richardson Francois, aka Swa, will read his story, The Hate Creates.
Okay, wait. I just want to say before we get to Swa's story, I have to admit, he is just one of my faves. He was one of my faves in the class. I know we're not supposed to play favorites, but I'm still back in high school. But he did the work. When students do the work and they try really hard and they come with a really great perspective or motivation or curiosity, it's just so much fun to work with them. And that's what he did.
Oh, yeah.
It was really, really cool. And in fact, when he called last night to record his episode, I wanted to keep him on the phone and ask his opinion of what does it feel like to be edited? Because when he first called, it was really funny. And you'll hear some of this, but he's like, so I got my edited version. And I was like, uh-oh, what's wrong? And I said, it didn't change much. He goes, well, there was only one line that changed. And so it was a question we asked him about his conversation or a fight that he had with this guy. And I guess I changed a word or two from his response into the doc when I was trying to put it in. And it was so cute. He's like, but you and Andrea, I trust you if you think it's right. And I was like, absolutely not. What is it? How does it sound out of your mouth? Let's get it written in your voice. And he was so happy. It was so cute.
It's honestly, it makes the experience of teaching so much better when you have students that are actually engaged and want to participate and want to learn what you're trying to teach. Because I had a group of high schoolers a few weeks back. It was an after school program. They didn't sign up for it. So essentially, I was just making them write after school after they had just been writing. So they didn't want to do it. And then last week, I had another group that actually they chose it. They had electives to choose from, and they chose to be there. And just the difference that made having students that wanted to be there, that were actually interested in it, it makes all the difference in the world.
Also, even when you have willing students, it's so rare that a student is like, okay, I trust my editors. That's so rare.
I still don't trust you completely. It's very hard. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I know.
We'll be back with Swa's story after the break.
We're back. This is Xaire, and you're listening to Writing Class Radio. This episode is the last in a 10-part series inspired by the men that Allison taught memoir writing in prison. We chose this essay to come last because it reveals a racial undercurrent we all live with that infiltrates the justice system. Here is Swa reading his essay, The Hate Creates.
My brother and I migrated from Haiti to the United States in 1985. He was 11 and I was 7. Our family resided in a little Haiti neighborhood in Miami. To use the phrase culture shock, lacks the required expressive emphasis to describe most of my experiences. I was considered, sometimes even felt like an alien from another planet rather than another country. This was a crucial period in my life. The language, the way of life, the arrogant bluntness, all this was foreign to me. It's often said that experience is the best teacher in life. And she came out to teach often during my early years in Miami. Nothing could have prepared me and my brother for the inhumane and cruel treatment from African Americans toward Haitian migrants, which infused us with confusion, anxiety, and hate. After a few months in the States, while playing soccer in front of our home, 3 kids about our age rode up on bikes. The leader of the trio was the skinny, dark-skinned kid who stood between the other 2. He blurted out, "What the fuck y'all Haitians doing around here?" He took me and my brother by surprise with his brash disrespect. We didn't know the language well, but thanks to our father's everyday schooling of the English language, we clearly comprehended what the leader had said. Also, profane language is usually the first words of a foreign language one learns. I blurted back, "Fuck you." They didn't take kindly to my words. They hopped off their bikes and closed the distance to where we were standing. More expletives were shared during a minute-long standoff. It seemed like they were trying to intimidate us more than anything. When they must have realized that me and my brother were not afraid, they got on their bikes and rode away while hurling more insults. "That's why y'all Haitians eat cat. Y'all Haitians need to move." This was one of the many incidents that became the norm. 3 years after we moved to the United States, our house got broken into while we were playing in the front yard. The home invaders brazenly rushed out, shot in the air, got in their car, and sped away. I don't know their nationality, but they were black. After that, my dad moved us from Little Haiti to Northwest Miami. There I attended Westview Middle School, where the harsh, brutal treatment of Haitian kids was just as bad. I noticed the better my grip on the English language, the less I got picked on. But my anger continued to fester. I hated witnessing other Haitian kids being called cat eaters and HBO, Haitian body order, and getting beat up by the African American kids. All through middle school and into my sophomore year in high school, I defended kids who were too afraid to defend themselves. This resulted in a lot of fights, suspensions, and finally getting expelled. By the end of my sophomore year, I dropped out. After running the streets pretty hard for about a year, I got arrested. I was charged with 5 armed robberies and faced multiple life sentences. At the age of 20, I was found guilty and sentenced to 40 years in Florida State's prisons. When the judge said 40 years, the details of my case flashed in my face. The stupidity of wanting to commit a crime just for the sake of fast money, robbing a Kentucky Fried Chicken with a gun, and even though I did not fire the gun, there were 2 customers and 3 employees still there late that night on December 22nd, 1995. Now, I was staring at a good portion of my life behind bars. During my nearly 26 years in prison, I've noticed how much has changed with the black-on-black experience between African Americans and Haitian migrants. With time to think and the ability to study, I have been able to delve into why this is. I've learned from author Edwidge Danticat, who writes about the Haitian struggle, Naeem Akbar, whose texts speak on the self-destructive nature of the black race and where it stems from, even Donna Goins, the godfather of urban novels, who wrote Kenyatta's Last Hit, which illustrated black-on-black hate. I have developed a deep passion to find a remedy for this sickness, though this passion couldn't stop me from getting involved in many wars between African Americans and Haitians that trickled from the streets into prison. One incident happened between me and a dude I considered to be a good friend at the time. I'll call him Jay. Jay is African American, and we're both from Miami. But this same war has caused many fatalities on both sides. So we should have known the ramifications behind using racial epithets to greet each other. Whenever he would say fucking Haitian, I would say fucking Yank. A term of disrespect used against each other on the streets. We did this sort of as a joke, but with all jokes, there was a seed of truth planted within. Over time, the friendship grew sour and reached a boiling point. We were playing cards with a few other dudes when an argument broke out between us. Jay got up from the table for about 5 minutes, so I kept dealing the cards. Bruh, I told you I was coming. You didn't have to deal around me, Jay said. I said, we weren't going to keep waiting on you. Jay said, making me miss a hand is like making me miss money. Fuck ass Haitian. I said, fuck you, fuck ass Yank. I was thinking but didn't say. You think you're special, just expect everyone to wait for you. You think you're better than blacks that are not born from this country. That's when he caught me with an unexpected blow that split my bottom lip and had me bleeding. My quick reaction helped me land one myself, but after locking up, his 210 pounds proved to be too much for my 180. Other people jumped in the fight. There was a Haitian side versus an African American side, and both sides were in a frenzy. The fight got broken up by some of the dudes who were playing cards with us. Due to the many blind spots in the dorm, the corrections officers didn't see the fight. I spent most of that night reflecting on the situation and the minute before that. It's the racial caste system. And just like all caste systems, the subordinate caste is taught to build a caste system amongst themselves. It's usually through colorism. However, in Miami, where there are many different cultures of African descent, the African Americans take the hierarchy role as the dominant caste amongst the blacks. So just as they were oppressed, they have learned to oppress. I realized what happened was bound to happen sooner or later because of all the horseplay and name calling between us. I knew better, so it was also my fault. Many of the old heads had warned me of this type of behavior way back in the county jail, but old wounds were open and long suppressed emotions found their way home. I had just lost a good friend over nothing. It became clear to me that ignorance is the seed from which hatred's destructive fruits grow. The ignorance that I'm supposed to hate someone because they're not Haitian, or that African Americans are supposed to hate me, this ignorance is taught at home or on the streets. I learned hate on the streets. I suspect some parents do teach hate because parents learn to hate too. According to an article I read in Ebony magazine several years ago, most people of African descent suffer from post-traumatic slave syndrome, a psychological disorder that is a product of the slave and master dynamic, the malice, depravity, and inhumane nature that existed in the minds and members of the slave masters permeated the minds and members of the slaves. Whites who are indoctrinated with this racist belief express their hatred towards blacks, while most blacks express their hatred towards themselves. The effects of slavery, like the institution itself, is self-perpetuating in its evolution. During slavery, almost every ounce of self-love was squeezed out of the slaves and replaced with the self-destructive force of self-hate. African Americans' cruel treatment of Haitian migrants stems from the same hatred that all Blacks, whether Haitian, Jamaican, Bahamian, Black, Latino, Africans from the homeland, suffer from and have been indoctrinated with. I suffered from this disease for a very long time. Hatred, expressed as racism, is a mental neurosis that affects our subconscious more than anything. Racism is a mental illness characterized by severe distortion of thoughts, perceptions, and feelings. Well, if we can't prejudge someone and look upon them with incense without ever learning about the individual, then something is very wrong with our perception. In her documentary, The Pieces I Am, Toni Morrison said, quote, "The people who practice racism are bereft. There is something distorted about the sight. It's a huge waste, and it's a corruption and a distortion. It's like it's a profound neurosis. Nobody examines for what it is. It feels crazy. It is crazy. It has just as much of a deleterious effect on white people as it does on Black people." End quote. People of all races have been fighting this battle against racism since the inception of the disease, but our methods have not been effective. We're engaged in a battle against a deadly disorder that should be labeled and diagnosed as such. This disease does not discriminate. It permeates the minds of everyone. It attacks the old just as it does the young. My 3-year-old niece, who is biracial, recently told her mom, my sister, that she is white and her mother is Black. This is a 3-year-old child who already has some sort of cognizance about the realities of race and its effects. Angela Davis says, we have to talk about liberating minds as well as liberating society. And I'll say, it's impossible for us to liberate society if we don't first liberate our minds of this deadly disease. It took being locked up for me to realize the healing and the change starts with me.
One, I love this essay. I thought it was very beautifully written. The things that stood out to me, I saw a lot of, I guess, parallels between my life and his from like an early stage. You know, migrating from another country, having to adjust to a new style of living, so to speak. And one thing that popped in my head.
Where did you come from?
I was born in England.
Oh.
Yeah. And that's the thing. So it's like, it's not even like I was coming from like a similar situation as him, but the experience as he was describing it felt the same. I wasn't learning another language, but I was definitely learning another language, if that makes sense, trying to adjust to how people talk here, different colloquialisms.
How old were you?
I was about the same age as he was when he moved here, 11. It was really weird listening to that. And it's like, man, this sounds like me. And one thing that I wrote down that was evident throughout the entire essay is people don't like different. I came here with a British accent. I went to one school. I got harassed, bullied, beat up, picked on. I went to another school. And because I've known from a very young age that I wanted to be an actor, when I moved to a different school, I just started talking like this. I didn't let anybody know I was from another country. I just adopted the accent to hide it. And that's, obviously something that he talked about as well, is he learned the African-American way of speaking. He got picked on less and less, and it's a very real thing.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, you hid your accent because British accents are so adorable.
And not in middle school. In middle school, they get you beat up.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Just before we go, you mentioned that Swa was 11. He was actually 7. His brother was 11. So I just want to clarify that. And also, I wanted to say that, I know that the sound was a little difficult in case any of our listeners were like, what's the noise in the background? But that you can't tell somebody to stop talking and, hey, we're recording. No one cares in prison. You just get what you get. So I was so grateful he just powered through, and hopefully it wasn't too distracting.
I mean, there were certain parts where it was a little louder than others, but those parts were few and far between. I pretty much could hear most of the essay.
I mean, thanks, Xaire, for that personal connection to this story. So I thought the writing was so beautiful. Like right from the beginning, there was something he said that made me, from the beginning, trust this guy's like philosophical musings, like trust the way he thinks. And it was when he was talking about like experience is the thing that helps you learn. And then he wrote something like he called experience like
she came to come back. She came often or something like that.
Yeah. It's often said that experience is the best teacher in life. And she came out to teach often during my early years in Miami. That's so nice. Mm-hmm. So now he's going to tell us about his experience and what it taught him. He did a really good job of telling and then showing. So he talked about how confusion, the hate he felt brought up confusion, anxiety, and hate. And then he showed right after that, this scene where these kids came up on their bikes and they were like, what the fuck are you Haitians doing around here? He showed them being mean. And then and this was something that I asked for in the edits. I wanted to really see what African Americans thought of Haitians, and the part about like Haitians eat cat. I was like, what? What is that? That's why Haitians eat cat. I was like, oh my God, that's so rude and ugly. And then the other rude, ugly thing that he heard was Haitian HBO, Haitian body odor. I mean, it was awful to hear these things, but it gave me a really good sense of what kind of hate this narrator was experiencing. So I thought that was really well done. Because then there was one part that I want to talk about later, which is about the way all of the, not all, but I've heard this in a few of the stories in this series. And this part, when the narrator was talking about his crime, I always want to reword their language, because I feel like they write it in this very passive way. And this narrator did that. 5 armed robberies. I was found guilty. Like I know it's the language of the criminal justice system. It's the language of sentencing, but I want in a story for a narrator to just say, I don't know. I just want it to be direct.
You want them to take responsibility for what happened.
I think the narrator does, but I don't hear it in the language. And that's what I want. And that's just something that I do want to talk about later, probably like when we talk about the whole series, because this story is really not about his crime, but it bugged me. So I'm just going to note it because I want to trust everything about this narrator. And when I hear a narrator sort of speak in like, this thing happened to me, no, I was the one who held a gun 5 times and robbed people.
I get what you're saying, because we have heard that in many, if not all of the stories that we've heard so far. But with this one, I feel like it works. And the reason why I feel like it works is because a prevalent theme in this essay is this thing called code switching. Essentially, what that is what I was talking about, how we talk to people depending on who we're talking to. But that's what that is in that sense. You know, this is, okay, now I'm talking about the case. Now I'm talking about the crime. I have to code switch. I have to translate this in the way that is best understood for everybody. Then when I go back to talking about my experiences, now I'm going to go back to talking how I talk, because that's how I communicate this. And I feel like that works with this essay perfectly. And I feel like it works better than it does with others, because that theme is already there.
I love that take. You are extremely generous, Xaire, and I get it. And I wish then that the narrator had said, this is code switching. I'm going to speak about my crime the way I've learned to speak about it.
But that is so literal. That's very you to ask for that. No one in their right mind is going to put that in an essay. It sounds ridiculous.
No, I feel like this narrator, because he knew that he was speaking the way that he was speaking. I mean, he changed the way he spoke.
I think what Xaire is saying is that when you're writing an essay, you're writing as a writer, right? You're not going to use too much slang. You're not going to be like talking so much in first person. You're going to make it general so that everyone can understand. As I'm talking about my case, it's always talked about in that person, that sort of lawyerly.
It's distant.
Yeah. And what I think would have been better, instead of saying I'm about to code switch, is to write like he speaks and just to put it down on the page as if he's talking to his best friend.
That's what I wanted.
Right. And so, but both sides are here, when you're sort of writing for an article, it's rare that, well, maybe it's not rare, but you don't ever see that.
That's the thing. See, with code switching, like it's not something that's talked about. It's an unspoken thing. It's like, so my mother's side of my family is from Jamaica. So my grandmother was born in Jamaica and she has a heavy Jamaican accent. My mother was raised in England for the most part. She has a British accent. When I talk to my mother, I start speaking with a British accent sometimes. When I talk to my grandmother, I start speaking with a Jamaican accent. I'm not telling them that I'm going to do that because it's not something that you do. It's just an instinctive, innate thing.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, very good point.
I actually think that maybe this story would have worked without any. And why do we need to know about his crime, actually?
I thought it was really important. I think in every story, it's always important to say what his crime is. Otherwise, people are like, well, what happened to this guy? What's he doing in prison? And it's really hard to focus on the story if you're wondering, like, well, how did he even get there? I need to trust him and I need him to reveal that to me.
Well, this is the one part I thought he could have done better in terms of the trust. Thanks for letting me say that, because I do respect and admire this piece. It's really smart. And then he shows us how he learned theory. This is also a hard story to write because it's theoretical and that's hard to follow, but I did not have any trouble following it. So he talks about trying to find a remedy for hate, which he calls a sickness. He calls mental illness. He uses Toni Morrison and other great thinkers to back up his theory. Awesome. And then he talks about like the history of hate. Oh, this is another thing that I thought was really gorgeous in terms of writing. Like he and his friend were playing cards and they were joking around with each other in this way that they always joked around. But then he said that there's a seed of truth in every joke. And then he brought back that seed image later when he talked about the ignorance grows and grows. It's that seed that grows. I just thought that was, again, like really, really good writing.
I had never heard of the post-traumatic slave syndrome. Is that true? I believed him because he's done all this research and he's noted all these people. It's obvious that he's read up and he knows his shit. So I totally trusted him 100%. But no one's ever talks about this. Like not even Michelle Alexander, I feel like in her book, maybe I missed that part, but in the new Jim Crow, it talks about the history of the incarceration, the carnal system, and a lot of the history, but post-traumatic slave syndrome, that was like really the first time I've heard of that. Have you guys heard about that before?
Yeah. One thing that's repeated, in a lot of conversations I have, regarding this area is trauma is hereditary. What ancestors go through, you don't have to go through it directly. It affects you because however they reacted to it, it reflects in how they raise their children and then how those children raise their children. And it trickles down to you. You're not experiencing the trauma firsthand, but you're definitely experiencing the effects of it. And that influences your reactions to certain situations.
I've never heard the term post-traumatic slave syndrome, but I agree with Xaire and I understand the evolution or the way that trauma is born into your cells. And this narrator used the 3-year-old already wanted to be white. That was a very excellent way to show the effects of how racism trickles down generation to generation.
Well, did she want to be white or she just felt like she was white? Because
I've got that she was choosing to be white. What did you get, Xaire?
Let me see. Is that it right there? 3-year-old niece who is biracial recently told her mom that she is white and her mother is black. I guess you could see it see it both ways. What I get from that is basically just, when I don't know what she looked like, but, when you're biracial and you have a white father and a Black mother and you see yourself, lighter than your mother, then you lean more towards, being white until you're met with, people who don't see you as white. And that's where that conflict comes.
I mean, I find it really hard to believe that 3-year-old was choosing to be white because she knew, maybe life would be easier or she would run into, I don't know. I mean, how do we know that?
I'm pretty sure that's what the narrator intends. The next line is, this is a 3-year-old child who already has some sort of cognizance about the realities of race and its effects.
I think he's projecting.
It may very well be projecting, but it also is very possible because I've literally seen it, from that early of an age and even earlier. People notice these things, especially children.
Mm.
Look, I don't want to make this about me at all, but I will tell you that I've had this experience myself. Okay, so I am Jewish, and I don't even think of myself as Jewish at all. And then when I first met my wife, I went to her house, and she's Roman Catholic, and she had like big old crosses and statues of Mary. And I literally felt scared. Why? I don't know. But I've thought about it a lot. And I've thought about, why do crosses scare me? And I really feel like there's something deep, deep, deep inside me, not a conscious feeling, but there's something, because Christians have killed Jews historically. That's just something that's in me. I've worked through it with my wife. I mean, and I don't mean to make a joke out of it, but I really felt it.
No. It's the unknown. I mean, even in class, I would sit and I would ask the guys, like, if it hadn't been for this class, I'd never know you. And they're like, yeah, it's true.
It's not the unknown. I think it's post-traumatic slave syndrome. There's trauma within me because I'm Jewish. And I'm 99% Ashkenazi. Like, my being is so Jewish, even though culturally I'm not really, I'm culturally Jewish, but I don't practice. But I'm a descendant of Jews who've been persecuted forever.
But so what he says here in this, just to turn it back to the story real quick, is that because of that, he feels that whites have taken this further and take their sort of anger out on Blacks because they are seen to be lower in the caste system. But Blacks, they take it out on each other in their own system. Is that true? We see it in neighborhoods and stuff, but why is that true? But, SWA is telling us it's something that's beyond us. It's a psyche toward sort of post-traumatic slave syndrome situation about why that is.
Basically what it is I see people treating me like this, and I have to find some sort of outlet. So I'm going to find someone that's quote unquote on a lower standing than I am. I'm going to release it to them and they can deal with it now. It's a loaded question.
So how do we fix this?
Yeah. But what I like about this narrator is he actually is saying he recognizes that he's participating in this hate back and forth, and he wants to stop. He realizes that he was throwing back hatred against his friend, lost his friend for no reason. And it took him being locked up to realize that the healing and the change has to start with him. I'm taking that to mean that he's gonna try to be more open and accepting of other Black people who are not Haitian. I think that's what he's saying.
But I don't think it's even accepting. It's the power struggle between races, caste systems, the whole thing. And that's why I'm saying, like I said in the beginning, it's sort of something we all struggle with because we're born thinking that we're great. Listen, I used to drive down to that neighborhood where he grew up in Westview. And this sounds so snobby, but so we were a member of a country club down the street. And I remember my parents like, okay, lock your doors. This is not a good neighborhood. And I was like, okay. And we just went along with our lives. And it's like, why? Why is our world set up in that sort of a caste system where we need to be afraid of each other. And how do we not be afraid of each other? How do we learn to get along and love each other and understand each other without name calling, without hate? How are we ever going to get past all this?
I think we're talking about two things here. Like, and that is like you learned from your parents, this idea that that neighborhood was bad. I think you're going to have to teach your kids differently. And that's one way. And we have to like sort of challenge, like I did, like this narrator is doing, challenge the internal ideas that we have based on the reality of what's in front of us.
My whole thought process behind that is, you know, you can attempt to reach a large group of people and try and educate as much as possible. But in all honesty, the easiest and hardest way to change this is for everybody to focus on one person, and that person being themselves, and for everybody to take that inward look and try and address, you know, the biases that they have, what experiences have taught them that may not have been the right lesson, or they may not have taken the right notes, so to speak. Like I said, it's the easiest way because if everybody does it, then everything's fixed now. But it's the hardest way because everybody's not going to do it.
That was beautiful. I love that. Xaire, frick, thank you. Can we talk really quickly about the questions you asked Swa at the end?
Yeah. I just wanted to ask you just to comment a little bit on the process of writing this, because I just want our listeners to understand, well, what is it like working on an essay while you're incarcerated?
Working on an essay while you're incarcerated, first and foremost, if it's your passion, it's a joy. You feel me? Just the process. There's not many productiveness, you know what I'm saying, going on in prison. You feel me? And even me, like for me, for example, I'm in a re-entry dorm where there's supposed to be a lot of productiveness, but prison is prison, you know, even though when you have certain dorms, that's supposed to, well, like as in inmates are held to a higher standard, you know, there's still a lot of foolishness and ignorance going on. If I'm working on an essay, though, I'll set aside 2-3 hours in the morning. I'll work on it then. And by the time I'm through doing that, it'll probably be lunchtime. And after lunch is count time. And I'll probably get some sort of like physical activity, exercise in, and then come later on that night around 7, 8, I'll work on it again for like another 2-3 hours. And I'll do that until it's finished. But at the same time, I've been revised the piece probably like 3 or 4 times. Revising it isn't totally write it over. So I'll do that like 3 or 4 times, or maybe even more than that, until I feel like, you know, I like it and it's a finished product. That's how the process goes, you know what I'm saying, for me.
Good. And what does it feel like to get edits?
It feels good.
No, don't lie.
No, I'm not lying, believe it or not. You feel me? And the reason it feels good because I know you and I trust you. You feel me? You know, to a certain extent, I trust Andrea. And the reason I trust her, because you trust her. You know, and because you speak highly of her. You feel me? And like I said, being that I've known you and I've known you for a while now, I feel like you know me and understand me, and basically you understand what it is and what type of message that I want to put forth. And so that's why I trust the editing process also. You know what I'm saying? The person that's editing it, you know, I trust, you know, and I consider them a close friend.
Thank you. That's really nice. Thank you. I hate getting edits sometimes, and I really want to kill Andrea. So I'm grateful to hear that you were a little bit less like angry with me. You know, my red pen sort of is sometimes not so well received.
Yes, your red pen.
But we only went back and forth on this maybe, you know, twice, I'd say, just asking.
Twice? No.
No? Longer?
We went back and forth on this at least about 5-6 times.
We did?
Yes, we did.
Oh, gosh. Well, you did a great job.
Well, all in all, I enjoyed it and I learned from it.
For one, I am extremely impressed with his work ethic. He described how difficult it is for anybody. I mean, I felt him like 2 to 3 hours in the morning. He works on his stories. There's so much stuff that he has to do. And then he goes back in the evening and works again for a few hours. He does that back and forth, back and forth. It sounds like it took weeks to get this story out. I'm just impressed. It's so difficult to write a story that's really good. And he showed us the process within prison.
To add to that, it was a lot. And, you know, he went over his process and you're listening to it and you're like, wow, this sounds like it must have taken a lot out of him. But he also prefaced it by saying, if it's your passion, it's a joy. That's what I really took away and what I really loved about it, because yes, you know, he's in prison. He has all this running around to do, all of these adversarial things coming at him, but it's his passion. So he takes joy in it. And that's what I feel like is the best takeaway from learning about writing. If you really enjoy it, then you're going to enjoy it regardless.
The other thing that I thought was so interesting and awesome was the way that he said that he trusts Allison. And I'm saying that because it is so difficult to trust editors. And I teach 2 classes a week. And sometimes students just really chafe against the edits that come from me and come from the other students in the class. This guy, though, he knows that what the editors want is really just what's best for the story. And that is a really hard thing to remember when you're taking edits. So thank you, Swa, for remembering that.
The other thing I wanted to mention was, and it's not just Swa, it's many of the guys in there, they want to rewrite everything and they don't have computers, right? So they're not like, oh, let me move this around. It's constantly rewriting the tediousness of, or tedium, whatever the word is, of
by hand.
Yes. And the paper and the pen, and nothing is like, oh, let me go to Target and just get this for 5 cents. I mean, like everything costs a fortune. They know they're sucking their family dry of money, you know, while they're sitting in here for 26 years. I mean, it just goes on. And every time I say, just write on the back or write on a scrap or something, you don't need to rewrite the whole thing. They do it anyway. They don't want to give me something they're not proud of. They've been so beaten down that they don't even see the good. Like, I'm like, you're amazing, everything is good. But they only focus on like what they're doing wrong.
Well, isn't that true for most people?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So
I was just so impressed. You know, you feel me. I just was so happy he said those. I was like, that's who he is. You know, he's a person who really, he's so much emotion in everything he says and does.
You know, what I found funny was the fact that he was talking about how he didn't mind the edits and he trusts and he loves it, and which is all true. But then he was very aware of how many times you had to go back and forth though.
I know. You're like 2 or 3 times. He's like, no. 5, 6 times. Like, you came back at me. Like, yeah.
I kept blaming it on you, Andrea. I was like, well, it's Andrea, you know, she's a little crazy. She just needs a little more.
And he still trusted me. Awesome.
I wanted to ask you guys also, just since this is our last episode, maybe just a couple tidbits, just a few minutes, because I know this is probably going on too long, but like from beginning to end, what has this series taught you, or how have you changed because of hearing these stories and you know, hosting these episodes?
Well, not even my biggest takeaway. I think how this series affected me is it inspired me to continue on a process on a road that I was already heading down. As we know, when we got started, when we were talking a little bit about getting to know each other and how I mentioned, you know, working in juvenile facilities and whatnot, it was something that I had done, but it wasn't something that I was sure about continuing. And just hearing these stories, you know, every week, it was just like, yeah, this is why I was doing it. You know, this is the reason why. You know, I was going into these places because I want to try and help make a difference for people that are very close to ending up in these same situations and who don't have a lot of these facilities, who don't have, you know, an Allison coming in to, you know, teach them memoir writing. I want to be that. I think I may have mentioned this the last time we spoke. I'm not sure. But after we had recorded an episode, I went shopping with my mom. And we had just gotten something to eat. As we were walking out of the restaurant, there was a man standing on the side of the road with a garbage bag full of clothes. And he had mentioned how he had just been released from prison. And he wasn't even from Florida. He had gotten transferred to a prison in Florida and got released in Florida. Didn't have any family, no phone. And they just said, here's your stuff. Have a nice life. And that's how we're treating people. Like, I understand that it's people that, have committed a crime, but if we're saying that the time that they spend in prison is their penance for that crime, then once we leave, can we start treating them like human beings again? Because that really bothered me. The fact that they just threw him out on the side of the road in a state that he'd never been in outside of prison. And it was like, don't come back.
How can you not come back? What are you supposed to do?
Exactly. And that's what he was saying to me. He was like, I've been out here for days, just trying to get to a shelter, just trying to raise money so I can get a bus to get to a shelter. And I was really just sitting here thinking, man, I should just rob somebody. And you guys were the first people to stop and talk to me. I was like, that's what we're putting people through. We question why people go to such lengths. They don't have any other choice because people aren't being human beings.
I was surprised to hear Swa say that reentry was not much different from the general population. They've moved him into reentry because he has a release date actually in December of 2022.
So explain that, because what does that mean, reentry? Like, he's in a separate.
So usually reentry, they start giving you tools to get back into the world. They start teaching you a trade. I know another guy, he's at a different facility than Swa, and they've taught him how to drive a semi truck. So he's already starting to make money. He's sort of like, they ease you back in with some way of making money. And in Swa's situation, I mean, maybe they'll start that soon. I can't imagine why once you're there, they don't start that. Maybe it's because he's getting shipped out. I mean, he's working with an immigration attorney now that I've connected him with, but he committed a crime of moral turpitude is what they call it. It's like a violent crime. And because of that, even though his entire family are citizens here now, they're going to send him out. A judge cannot even say, oh, I see what's going on. He's fighting it, but there's a very small chance that he's going to get to remain in this country because the laws changed a bunch of years ago, and that's how it works. And it just breaks your heart. So I don't know if they're just saying, well, he's not worth our time. He's leaving here anyway. So I'm not really sure what's going on there.
That means that he's going to be shipped back to Haiti.
Mm-hmm.
And is Haiti going to accept him?
I don't know. I mean, that's part of his case. Like, can they prove that that's dangerous for him? But it's exactly what you're saying, Xaire. You can't throw somebody out without family or a place to stay. Like, you really have to work a little harder. Our system has to work a little harder, especially if people have been down for a long time. I mean, it's one thing if you're gone for a year, you come back, you sort of take up your life. But for Swa, 26 years, there was no internet. There were no cell phones. There were no computers. Like, what? And now he's supposed to just dive right back in and get a job and be like an asset to society? Who's going to give him a chance? It's terrible. The United States has a terrible system.
Well, one of the things that I've learned over the course of this 10-part series is how terrible the system is. I don't know how much I knew about it before, but like, I've learned that there's 2 million people, 2 million in the United States prison system.
Yeah.
That is the most fucked up thing I've ever heard in my life. And I've also learned that sentences in the United States are way too long compared to other countries, like the Netherlands, like
Norway.
Their 4 years is their, average. Or
supposedly Norway has the best system. Only like the worst crimes in the whole wide world are 20 years. Like, you would never that's the like minimum around here. So, and they really see it as longer sentences and people getting involved in the system. They see it as insecurities basically in their own system, because if they're failing people, then they need to fix the system so they're not failing people.
That's so beautiful. That is not the way the United States. So
and they help you while you're in prison. They teach you, they train you, they give you classes, they make you, your rehabilitation is a thing where they really try to get you back into society as a mentally strong and stable person. And in this country, they beat you down until by the time you get out, good luck to you.
Right. So I have learned that in this country, prison is an extension of slavery. I've learned that. It's totally racist. It's ugly. It's a business. It's an enormous, horrible problem. I don't know that there's much positive spin that I could put on that after that, but I have learned that there are people like Allison who are going to do things like raise a ton of money to help a prisoner, a person, a friend of hers, one of our students, get a lawyer so that he can get out. And I don't know the complications of Too Tall's case, but I do know that lawyers have told us that he should not be in there anymore. He has served his time. So, and there's a bunch of people that have, in the course of like putting out this GoFundMe campaign, like I've been sending emails, and Alice, you've been sending emails. So people are like, whoa, this is bad. I want to help you. And I was surprised. People that I've known my whole life who are like lawyers now or like connected to justice, I've been so amazed at the support that we've gotten for Too Tall.
Yeah, it's beautiful. There are so many people really trying to change the system. So if we pay attention, we'll find those people. There's a podcast called Pursuing Justice by the Innocence Project. The woman, Harriet Hendel, who is on there, is wonderful. And the people who come on are talking about things that they're doing to change the system. And it's gorgeous. I mean, there are a lot of people who care. So the more I've learned, the more my mind has been open to like various things. In DC, they have it's this thing called the Second Look Project. And they're looking at people who have served at least 20 years, and they're looking at their sentence and what their crime was and everything. And they're reevaluating and they're letting people out. They're like, this is ridiculous.
Right. Because we've also learned that people grow out, age out of crime.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've learned a ton. I've learned that these are people who've made mistakes. I've loved their stories. I've learned that they are hardcore artists. I mean, God, look at Swa.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's many more like him.
Yeah. I mean, everybody who contributed to our series.
And if they're set up for success, there's no way they're not going to achieve it. I believe that 100%.
Based on how hard they've tried writing these stories.
I think this is a very good episode to wrap up on. I feel like it encompassed everything that we've gone over throughout the series. One thing I wanted to mention, I don't have the quote exactly because I picked up on it late from Swa's essay. When he says, ignorance is the seed from which hate grows. I feel like that is, in a sense, what this is all about. Ignorance of what these prisoners are going through. Ignorance of how life in prison affects them. Ignorance of how life before prison got them there. Ignorance of how, the justice system isn't really a system about justice sometimes. I feel like when we tackle that ignorance with things like, writing class radio, with different organizations or whatever it is that's meant to educate, when we tackle that ignorance and when we, expel some of that ignorance, that's when, we were able to create some of that change that we're looking for.
This officially concludes our prison series. That does not mean you're not going to hear any more stories by men and women in prison, because we are very open to more stories. We want to share your words. If you are incarcerated or formerly incarcerated or have a loved one who is impacted by the criminal justice system, we always want to hear from you.
Thank you, Richardson Francois, for sharing your story. Thank you for listening.
This series is dedicated to Luis Aracena, who lost his beautiful life to asthma while incarcerated. You are in our hearts and will be remembered forever.
Don't leave me lonely, 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 lonely.
Writing Class Radio is produced by Allison Langer, Xaire, me, Andrea Askowitz, and by Matt Kundle, Evan Serminski, and Courtney Fox at the Sound Off Media Company. Music by Xaire and Marnino Toussaint. There's more writing class on our website, writingclassradio.com, including video classes, essays to study, and editing resources. If you love the lessons you get on each episode, you can get them all in one place in our 3-part video series for just $50. Click video classes on our website. If you want to be part of the movement that helps people understand each other through storytelling, follow us on Patreon. For $10 a month, I will answer all your publishing questions. For $25 a month, you can join Allison's First Draft weekly writers group, where you can write and share your work. That happens Tuesdays from 12 to 1 Eastern. Go to patreon.com/writingclassradio. A new episode will drop every other Wednesday, so listen for us.
There's no better way to understand ourselves and each other than by writing and sharing our stories. Everyone has a story. What's yours?
Produced and distributed by the Sound Off Media Company.